The other, one of the major aspects of faculty in an institution, like a design institution or fashion institute, is that the students are generally, girls, and a large number of girls are there who are studying in an institute. And it becomes extremely important to develop the right kind of behavioral patterns in the faculty members. For example, I was quite amused and shocked when I landed up as director. I found that students were made to stay very long, and obviously they are working very late into the night. But then we need to take appropriate caution and care in such kind of institutions to make it very open. So one of the things which I did, I remember, was that the director's room, for example, which had an opaque wall at to the courtyard, I got it removed and completely made it glass, so that people could see that the director, who is he is sitting, or who is she or he interacting with, was always visible to the people who went outside. Of course, they were not coming very close to the glass, but they were going around. They could see that who was inside, because there was an open, transparent system which I wanted to introduce, and it was initially resisted by a number of faculty members when I asked them to change their curtains and wooden partitions to glass partitions and make it very visible in terms of the environment. Because some places have this habit of making the jury systems are very personal and subjective, and unless you make transparent systems for the faculty to follow, it can be because when I looked at the data of NID at that point in time, in about 1961, of course the program started only by mid-70s, 75, 76, and from 76 to 2000, maybe about a quarter of a century, the total number of students, I'm talking from memory, the total number of students admitted were roughly about 1300 only, and out of which almost 750 or 56 students had dropped out. So this was a staggering a statistic in my view. Why did the students drop out, and why was that the jury system became so very oppressive? So one had to really then introduce the system of not the subjective style of making assessment of students. So this was what resulted in, if you look at the 50 years of NID publication, you will find that I had invited Birmingham Institute of Art and Design and their experts to come to NID and devise a system from the very beginning to look at proper transcripts, proper making systems, not just subjective assessment of a faculty member about the student, but putting grade point average like in IIT, and made that system. There was so much of resistance to this being introduced, and there were a couple of faculty members who helped me to really, in fact I used a group of younger faculty members to drive the system of new assessment. I think it created almost a complete revolutionary progress in the NID's culture. From subjective jury systems, it became a very objective, very transparent, transcript-based, grade point average-based system of the students could even be anywhere in the world. They could upload, download their mark sheets, and BEARD became a quality assurance institute for NID for almost 5 or 6 years from that period. It was early 2001 or 2002 when we started working on it, and in about 3, 4 years, 5 years time, it became a stable system. Why I am alluding to that is, we need in a faculty and student relationship a very clear, transparent way of working. Otherwise, there could be many cases where people are not necessarily being subjective in their assessment of the students, and this need to be prevented. And similarly, the peer relationship. I remember in one of the instances in NID, one of the the teaching assistants or teaching staff who we took made a complaint about a faculty member who seemed to have closed the door while she entered to discuss, and it became a very important lesson for everybody in the institute when we dismissed the faculty member on the spot, and I think it went to court also, and it became a case. However, the issue is that we took very stern action when it was involving any kind of harassment issue, any kind of subjective juries where students were not happy or the faculty colleagues were not happy about somebody's behavior, we took stern action. Many people do not discuss these matters, but it's very important in the faculty development, not only the knowledge aspects of the faculty, but also the behavioral aspects of the faculty are concerned. Because certain organizations develop a culture where it becomes a holy grail and nobody discusses. But if you do not discuss these issues, it can harm the institution and its future. Because when I landed up in NID, the culture of the institution was very different. And because there was already many instances where the couple faculty members were working together in an organization. There was in the textile department the husband-wife team. The current director and his wife were already there as a couple, and there was a student, the director who were a couple. So this became power centers within the institution, and it became other people were really then looking at these as a kind of system which is harming the open discussions or proper evaluation. So we had to really bring in a more transparent system of how to make it more objective. If a couple has to work in an organization in the same departments, it is very important that yesterday also I am receiving copies of a complaint written about the current situation in NID, which is not a good thing. If you are not transparent, people will feel that a normal promotion given to a faculty member is also under a cloud because you are having a relationship as a husband and wife, or a student earlier studied and then got married to somebody there itself. It becomes a question which every institution needs to address. And in NIFT, because there was no residential facility attached to the institution, this kind of issues were much less. In a residential institution, this is of a very different character because students are residing in the same campus, faculty members, married, unmarried, all kinds of people are living in a campus. One needs to have very clear HR policies, very clear workplace harassment policies entrenched into the system, which otherwise can be misused and create cloud in the organization's reputation. I did not find during my stay in NIFT, for example, because we were all coming in the morning and going away in the evening, and there was really no social interaction with the people beyond a point. There were much less issues, and also it was being a new institution, and it was in Delhi, and people had much other things to do in the metropolis. So why I'm mentioning this is faculty development is one part of the story, and how the faculty behaves in the institutional context. For example, a faculty forum meeting. In IAM, for example, every faculty member has to be present unless he or she is hospitalized for the present faculty forum. But over a period of time, people started dropping out from attending the meeting, and there was a very stern situation which came in IAM, which the director Jahar Saha used to tell me, where then they had to really admonish, and people used to come around to attend the faculty forum. In NID, luckily, all the years, I think this was one great institution which was built by NID, where every faculty member, irrespective of their physical status or where they are, on the faculty forum day, they used to be present. And very seldom you will find one or two absentees for some reason which is beyond their control. This was also the case in IIT, for example, where I studied for my doctorate. In a moderation meeting, even if the senior most professor fails to land up, he could get a memo from the director, and such discipline was enforced, which is behind the reputation of IIT. The same thing to some extent was the reputation of NID as well, because the faculty forum became a very good platform for democratic discussions without really any rank or stature in the period of 2 days, really speaking. Same thing used to happen in IAM, where the faculty used to, whether it is the junior most faculty or the senior most faculty, everybody was same in terms of their hierarchy. There was a more flatter structure which was emerging. So institutions need to develop these structures and systems by which the faculty development from peers, faculty development through the systems of the organization develops. For example, in NID, no meeting is called before 5:10. Because normally the institution closes by 5:45, 6 o'clock. So either the meeting is fixed at 4:45 or 5:10 when the actual work of the academic work gets over. And if you want to call a meeting in the auditorium, it was always at 4:30 or 4:45 or 5:10. And that is how the structure is developed. Any director sitting in the room is not going to call a faculty member during the daytime unless it is an extremely emergent situation where you have to discuss something urgent. So there were systems developing in an organization which becomes cardinal principles based on which the quality, the systems orchestrate itself to create outcomes which are brilliant for an organization. And that is what outsiders perceive as a great institution. And to create that kind of a non-controversial, transparent system, every institution needs to build its faculty culture, faculty cadre with great amount of caution and care. And we need to emphasize in today's world, when we are seeing a lot of issues in the workplaces, even more caution than probably even those days when we saw these institutions developing into more prominent institutions in the country's education landscape.